Who am I talking with?
Hi, Kevin. I'm Megan Zavieh.
Okay, well, you knew my name. That's pretty good.
I do know your name.
And where are you from?
Well, I live in Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay, that's what I was asking. And what do you do?
I represent other lawyers before the California State Bar who are facing ethics inquiries.
Really? So how did we get to talk to you?
Did you do something wrong?
I know. No, I mean that wasn't even that. Are you speaking here?
I was podcasting here.
You were?
I have a podcast, Lawyers Gone Ethical, and
Really?
I've been recording with all kinds of very cool Clio people.
How long have you been doing a podcast?
We're approaching 100 episodes, so almost 2 years.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Is that your idea, your brainchild?
Sort of, and Nicola Boods.
When you say we,
well, I have help, so
Okay.
I like to give them credit, especially I have a wonderful assistant, Lee
Okay.
Duckworth, who helps make this happen, and Nicola Bood helped get it off the ground originally.
Okay. But it was your impetus to say, okay, I'm going to do this.
Yeah, I was like, oh, nobody's doing an ethics podcast. We probably should think about doing one.
and who are the type of people you bring on?
A lot of solo lawyers who are just doing cool things with law, like building out new subscription services or like Hello Divorce.
Right.
Things that are just a little different and innovative, and we talk about how, hey, that's actually okay.
Okay.
And there's not an ethics problem with this.
And what got you interested in doing something like that? Where, it's not like you're saying, okay, I want to go get ethics lawyers on that are in other states or different types of issues or whatever. People that sit on, boards for hearings, for ethics brought up for hearings or whatever. You're not doing that. It's totally...
Yeah, not much of that. Every so often an ethics colleague, but...
But you're basically saying, I want to go, talk to people that are doing interesting things. Mm-hmm. And why?
Why?
It's a good idea. I'm not questioning it, but I'm like, why you all of a sudden said, I'd like to do that?
Well, partly it's because when I got into ethics defense work, I found that lawyers throw up the ethics rules as a barrier to doing cool new stuff.
Oh, okay.
They're like, I had this idea, but then I realized, of course, I can't do that. Why not? And they're like, well, I don't think the ethics rules permit it. I'm like, which one? Like, drill down on this. How in the world are you prevented? And we use them to hold ourselves back a lot. And the profession's changing, we're evolving. The people who are going to really make a killing and help a lot more people, a lot more clients are the ones who are going to innovate. And I like to kind of open the doors for people and help them see that there's not actually an ethics reason not to do something new and different. And so when you have an idea, go with it, run with it, figure out how you can make it happen.
So what would you have told some guy in rural Wisconsin that's trying to figure out whether you can use the internet to connect with people, that knows nothing about the internet, but knows that if you go to Barnes & Noble and you get a floppy disk, you can put it in the side of your machine. Although I had to find out, so I didn't know what you did with them. And then I had to find out that you take your telephone off the hook in the kitchen of the 100-year-old house, plug it in the side, and I think you dialed a phone number. I don't remember what we did.
You did back then.
Maybe the screen came up and you pushed the button and it clicked. And you know what there were? There were thousands and thousands of people asking legal questions on 6 companies' set of message boards. And what if somebody came to you and said, and this was me, and
I gathered that.
I figured that. Can I answer these questions? They're all over the country, all over different states. There's going to be no conflict check because we don't know any of their names. We don't know whether they're represented by a lawyer or not, but we're going to answer. I'm going to answer their questions when I have time, maybe 5-7 a day. Mm-hmm. What could you imagine? Is someone in your shoes, or the state ethics hotline, if I would have called them in 1996, saying,
oh, they would have actually absolutely lost it. You can't give advice across state lines. You don't know who you're talking to. You haven't run your conflicts, as you mentioned. You can't give legal advice without diving into a case and knowing all the facts.
Right.
There was a time that just would have been so taboo. That's a little later than when I was in a computer science class before I ever went to law school. And it was like Computer Science 101. And the professor asked me why I was taking the class. And I said, I want to move to Alaska, where I've never been still to this day. At the time I wanted to move there. And
where were you living then?
California.
California.
Fremont, California. And he goes, okay, what does that have to do with here? And I said, well, I want to telecommute. And he said, and this has to be like 1992. And he said,
what does that mean?
That's not a thing. That's never going to be a thing. And I said, I think it is. And he was like, it's not.
Right.
I'm like, well, I'm going to stay in your class anyway. And of course, I didn't go into computer science, and I became a lawyer, but now look where we are. So Similar thing in 1996. Yeah, completely taboo. This is craziness.
And you had to just plow ahead. Because my thought was, if I get in trouble for this, then I don't need to be in the law. Because all of these people are helping each other, in many cases better than any lawyer would, because they and their family have been through this situation. They've lost a child due to medical negligence. They know how to pick the good lawyers. They know what expert witnesses are. They knew this. Many of them knew this stuff cold, but there weren't any lawyers helping people because lawyers don't go out where people are and try to help them.
Yeah. They still don't always do that.
Short disclaimer just said, hey, this is legal information, general information, you need to see a lawyer in your state. Now, Will Hornsby said, Kevin, that years later, that ain't going to fly. And then when he went to our site where the listserv was, and it said that, if this is advertising this could be construed as advertising in your state, then it's not. That was the best disclaimer I could come up with at that time. It's a great idea, though, what you're saying, to bring on these people that are doing cool stuff, and it's okay.
Yeah.
And it might, I'm assuming in many cases, it benefits lawyers.
Absolutely.
So it's not taking things away from them, it's enhancing how they serve clients and enhancing their life.
Yeah, and part of what I like to highlight for people is that when you build a practice that's doing something you're not just passionate is an important concept, but I think overused. Something you're excited to do and that you want to get up in the morning and be part of, and this is something you're growing, you're better at it than doing something really boring. And you start to design a life that works with your work, because it's not really a work-life balance. Like, there's a blend today. Like, there's no such thing as like leaving work behind. So if you can build a practice you love that fits in your actual life, that's a really good thing. And that's very far from the white shoe law firm, put on my suit every morning, punch the clock, miss all the family events. Like, it's just a very different life.
So you're working with Shasha here to get set up, and that's great. And so you got this podcast, you invent your own radio station, because you do know that
that's what it is.
I had dinner with Doc Searles this year, and incredible what he's done with the net, blogging and whatnot, and a former DJ in California. He lives in Santa Barbara part-time in New York. And we were talking about it, he goes, there's going to be no radio. I said, really? He goes, there will be no AM or FM radio anymore. It will be just shows on demand. Your show will just be another show.
Yeah.
And there'll probably be algorithms that tell me what I want to see when it's available, based on what I've seen before, or what I've listened to before, or seen before, who the guests are that you have, and what I may like to see. It's cool what you're doing from an ethics standpoint. What do you most enjoy about it?
It's really fun just to talk to people who I wouldn't otherwise probably have like this meaningful of a conversation with. There's plenty of people who've been guests that I know from outside. Like, I've already had dinner with them or attended a conference with them or whatever. But then it doesn't mean that we necessarily are going to sit there and like dive into, let's talk about the ethics of what you do, right? That's not necessarily dinner time conversation. So that's part of it, and just getting to know people that I wouldn't otherwise have the opportunity. And then at conferences like this, I actually get really excited that people have come up and told me that, and that they've listened to an episode.
Right.
Like, I actually had someone come to me and say, and I didn't know her from before, and she said, I just want to let you know, I needed to research an issue, and I found your podcast on this topic, and it was incredibly helpful. And I'm like, yes, I'm making a difference. Sometimes some of my episodes are solo. I do guest episodes and also solo episodes where I just talk about a particular issue.
Really, you go on solo and just talk.
And I laugh because I'm like, I'm sitting here talking to myself. Maybe somebody's out there going to listen to it. And so that episode that she came and said was helpful. It was a solo episode. Right. So I'm like, I was just sitting there talking to myself, and it made a difference to somebody. So that's incredibly rewarding and encourages me to keep doing it.
Are you in a firm, or are you working for a company or insurance company?
I'm solo. Totally solo.
Solo. And all your work is defense ethics?
Yes.
Your clients are insurance companies and firms? Or
just California lawyers, mostly solos.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, so I don't do malpractice defense. I do the ethics side, so it's all state bar inquiries.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so every so often insurance kicks in, because malpractice insurance does often have a component for ethics coverage, but a lot of lawyers don't want to access it, because sometimes the ethics part really does not have a malpractice component. You can have violated the ethics rules without committing malpractice, and so to avoid kicking in their insurance and having insurance problems, they sometimes just
What
forego the
do
coverage.
other lawyers think about what you're doing? They think it's wacky, or what are you doing? Or
I have kind of a split. So more traditional, old school lawyers will flat out tell me I'm crazy with some of what I'm doing, particularly in the ethics defense world. I didn't really realize when I first got into it that defending the ethics part of the complaints and advising lawyers on how to proceed ethically are two different things. And a lot of my colleagues don't advise lawyers on how to proceed in their businesses. To me, they just go hand in hand. So some of my colleagues who don't do the advice think I'm nuts to do it. And others think I'm insane to think that the profession is evolving and that we need to actually adopt different models. But then I have, mostly in the more innovative space, the lawyers love what I'm doing and appreciate having a sounding board that, I actually dig into the ethics rules and geek out on them. And I'm like, I'm glad someone does, because I just want to ask my question and not have to.
Well, I assume you must get legal tech companies that talk to you about, should we do this or how would we set it up and whatnot.
I have definitely been consulted by tech companies. Right. The individual lawyers are the much more fun ones, in my opinion. The tech companies definitely are important players,
right,
and they will have ethics questions because when they build something, they're not subject to bar regulation, but everybody that's going to be, impacted by what they're doing will be, and they don't want to build a product that's going to get their customers in trouble.
Well, the lawyer, it's interesting because the lawyer's got it all on the line.
Absolutely.
So it's a big deal.
Yeah, because the companies are not regulated directly.
Yeah, I found when you told the ethics people to take a hike, they got upset. And I remember that in law school, sitting there thinking, scared out of my mind, but realizing, okay, what you really need to do, no matter what, is you just do whatever the ethics body says. You just respond and do whatever.
And I've had clients say to me, I will do whatever you tell me to do.
Well, then they, the plaintiff stuff was, if you didn't get an adequate award, people would file a grievance, and then people started to use it as political. So if you got involved in political issues, then the opposing side would have multiple people start filing grievances against you for fraud or something you said in the media. You get these stacks of. I really disliked that portion at the end of the practice law where people were using ethics grievances as an arrow, and it was lawyers that were telling them how to do it. Obviously they weren't lawyers filing the grievances, but you could see who was coaching this thing behind the scenes to try to chill you out getting involved in social issues. And I go, this is a really sleazy deal. How'd you get involved in this, other than the podcast? How'd you decide to do ethics? It's not everybody says, I want to grow up. I'm going to law school. What are you going to do? I'm going to do ethics work on behalf of lawyers.
No, it's probably part of why my defense bar is me and there's another guy around my age, and then we're up to another a 50-year-old, and everybody else is another couple decades older. It feels like no, it's definitely not something you hey, when I grow up, I want to be an ethics lawyer. I actually came out of law school intending to go to medical school and become a psychiatrist treating lawyers.
Really?
That was my original goal, and I forewent medical school to go to a clerkship in a big law firm. The debt and wanting to start a family and various factors.
So did you go to medical school?
I did not go to medical school. I had everything ready. I took the MCAT. I did all my pre-meds during my clerkship, and I was ready to go, and then decided, well, I'm going to hold off, and then didn't.
Didn't happen.
And I was instead a big law securities lawyer, securities litigation, defense, and I did that for about 8 years after my clerkship. And then I moved back to California, and I was finally free of the confines of big law, where people ask you for help and you're like, oh no, I'm not allowed to help you.
Where were you in big law?
I was at Schulte, Roth & Zabel, then what is now K&L Gates, and then Deckert in New York and New Jersey. And so, in big law, somebody asks you for help and you're supposed to say, oh, I'm not allowed to help you because I work for this big law firm and I can't, do anything that's not for a client.
That is a big difference between, I'm going to medical school so I can help lawyers.
Yes.
But I decided now I'm going to do litigation for a huge law firm in Manhattan.
Yeah. Can you see that one was in alignment with all of my values and the other was really not? Right. And so I had been asked to help on a bar defense case when I was in big law, and I couldn't help, right? Because I'm stuck in big law, I'm not allowed to help you. when I got out of Big Law, I was like, oh, I can jump in and help. So I did, and then I spent some time in the state bar court, because California has a separate court just for attorney discipline. And I was in the court and seeing the process and seeing some lawyers just lost. I mean, absolutely lost, representing themselves, not having a clue about this process and the system, because it's not like every other court and these things.
I can help them.
Yeah, and I was like, I could do this. Like, oh my gosh, I could do this.
And all those issues are based on so many different issues. It could be mental health issues that they don't even see what's coming, financial issues, all of these things.
Yes.
Most people don't go out of their way to say, I'm going to do something unethical. It arrives.
Yeah, something happens.
Yeah, you get mad. It's not a good thing to represent yourself through. It's fascinating, though, to do the podcast all the way to that and say that I'm going to do this. What's been the hardest thing doing a podcast?
At times coming up with new things to talk about where I feel like, haven't I beaten every dead horse and I don't have something new? And as soon as that happens and I feel like the wells run dry, something comes into my universe. I'm like, oh my gosh, something new, some new topic, because it really is constantly changing and evolving, and people are constantly coming into the profession with new ideas. And so it doesn't ever really run dry, but it feels like it does sometimes. And then I find that if I just kind of let go a little bit and relax, I will find something.
What would you tell somebody that's going to do a podcast, a lawyer?
To plan ahead a little bit. That has made it a much less stressful process, because I do it weekly,
right.
And that can get overwhelming sometimes. A week goes by like
I'll
that. Bet it does. I write monthly for some publications, and a month goes by really fast. So you can imagine a week does. But as long as I'm on top of it and I keep planning, that is probably my biggest piece of advice. And then the other being just like let go a little bit. Like if you miss an episode, it's okay. There was a time where I'm like, no, I can't.
It's not like Monday Night Football didn't play this week.
Exactly. And then I have the Heidi debacle, right? Like it's going to be okay. Yes, people might be expecting it, or maybe they're not. And if it shows up in their feed or not, it's okay. But have fun with it. Podcasting is really fun.
But overall, it's made your life as a lawyer more rewarding.
Oh, absolutely. And there have been times where, especially my family will be like, "Are you sure you want to keep doing this?" When I'm yelling at them all to be quiet. Not yelling.
Mom's on her podcast.
Yeah, exactly. I try to record when no one's there, but every so often it happens. And I remember explaining at one point to my husband, and goes, "So, what do you get out of this?" And I'm like, honestly, it's incredibly rewarding. So
better than talking to myself.
Better than talking to myself.
I have some people that actually, I could imagine my wife saying, "And they're listening to you?"
Yes. Oh yeah. I get a little bit of blowback for that, but it's all in good fun.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed it.
Thank you for having me.
You bet.